Okay, welcome everyone. It is Monday morning, 27th of November, and I want to welcome you to 2 full days of webinars from the Nordic Way 3 project, a Nordic collaboration between Finland, Norway, Denmark, and Sweden, co-funded by the European Union. My name is Anna Johansson Jacks, and I am the project coordinator, and also very happy to be able to introduce to you all kinds of results for the next 2 days in the form of webinars. If we can just click onto the next screen, I will show you the agenda for the next coming 2 days. As you can see today, it's all pretty much based on project results. We're going to have some technical sessions for interchange and ecosystems. It will go on until we have a lunch break today. And then we will have some more detailed information about some of the services that we've been tested and has to do with traffic signal this afternoon. And also another services regarding roadworks warning. They will wrap up today, Monday. Tomorrow, there will be some studies on deployments for digital services for connected vehicles or CITS, and also a really interesting part regarding traffic regulation and some new technologies also that is relevant for this type of projects that we've been working on. Tomorrow at 3 o'clock, we will summarize all of this and end this 2 days event with a panel discussion with management participation from the Danish Road Directorate, the Norwegian Public Road Administration, the Finnish Ministry of Transport and Communications, and the Swedish Transport Administration. They will all touch on the national perspectives from the project results, some of the challenges they each one of them see, and also the plans going forward now when we're ending this project. And there will be an opportunity for you to ask questions at the panel discussion tomorrow, and as well during the other webinars the coming 2 days here. So I will be back on the screen to lead the discussion tomorrow, and I hope to see you all there. I want to remind you that for all the different webinars that you see on the screen here, you will need to register individually and go into new meetings for them. So I hope that you have that information clear for you so you won't miss out any parts of these 2 interesting days. But for now, I will hand over the floor to the moderator of this first webinar of the day, the Interchange and Ecosystems. So hello, Norway, and hello, Germund. Are you there?
Good morning, Anna. Yes, I'm here. Thank you very much. And as Anna said, welcome to this first session. My name is Germund Jacobsen. I work for the Norwegian Public Road Administration, and I will be moderating this session before lunch. First, I would like you some practical information. So the session will be recorded, and the recordings will be made available after the webinars on various platforms. No guests can turn on the camera, so organizers must give the permission. And the most interactive part of this webinar is the Q&A sessions. Please write your questions in the chat window during the presentations. And then after the first 3 presentations, we will have a Q&A session. And also the second part. And then questions that we are not able to answer during the Q&A, we will answer after the webinar. So please write your questions in the chat window. So for the first session, we will cover the ecosystem around the interchange, from explaining the purpose of evaluating the cost and operation of interchange work, followed by a demonstration on how data can be shared across international borders using a federated interchange together with the national access points. And to wrap up the session, we will look at a roadmap that shortly describes the development of ITS services in the Nordic Way 3 work and beyond. So as you see from here, we have a tight schedule. We will have 3 presentation Q&A, a short break, another 2 presentations, and then the Q&A before we take lunch at 11:30. So I would then like to introduce our first speaker. Menno Malta is a CEO and founder of Monarch, a fast-growing international company in the smart mobility market. Menno is in the forefront of Monarch, driving integrated mobility solutions that pave the way for a smarter future in transportation. This future is all about making real impact, something that Menno deeply yearned when he initially founded Monarch out of the frustration with the current state of affairs. Menno will explain the interchange, its purpose and functionality, along with the demonstration and deployment. And the last, the use of interchange in Sweden NordicWay 3 pilots, along with the process of federating with other changes. So the force is yours, Menno. You can take over the sharing.
Yes, thank you, Jarmond. So it's an honor to be the first presenter of these 2 days. My name is Menno Malta, indeed the CEO of Monarch. Let's start with a brief introduction about Monarch. I will not spend a lot of time, but for our company, it's all about connecting, as we say, the roadside to the road user. So we connect mobility with digital infrastructure, and we work for road authorities in general. Started in the Netherlands a number of years ago, but in the meantime, we're active in several European countries with deployments or pilots, and also now in the US and actually also in New Zealand since last week. So new deployment, happy to announce that. So just as a brief introduction, that it's all about data exchange of connected mobility and digital infrastructure for us. Now, over to the interchange. I've received many times the questions during the NordicWay program, what is actually an interchange? And I've tried to summarize this at this one slide. In general, it's a data broker platform. And there are many types of data brokers. What makes this a specific one is that it follows the C-Roads protocols to connect and to exchange data. And the heart of the C-Road specifications are 2 interfaces. One is the basic interface, and one is the improved interface. So you can say that the naming was not so original within C-Roads, but the BI and the II stuck sort of as easy to use words. Now, how do you use this basic, the BI interface? Actors in the ecosystem use it to publish their data to the interchange, and consumers use it also to consume that data. And to explain that a bit more, what we do when you want to publish your data, we call that a capability. So let's assume that you have roadworks warnings data, then you can register your capability on the interchange, and you can start to publish your data to this interchange. Then other parties, the other actors, as we say it, that are interested in receiving this data can subscribe to that particular capability, and they can start to consume the data through these, the BI interface. Now, formally, so if you follow fully the C-Road specifications, this means that there's also some specifications on the messages. And an important thing there is that messages should have a geoheader and must be signed. And this is because C-Road originally comes from the short-range communication perspective, where data is broadcasted into the open air. So it's very important to know who is actually sending that data. Of course, in the network setup, there are also other techniques to organize that, but this is the formal C-Road specifications. And then we have the II interface, which is a specific interface to create a network of interchanges. So as an example, every country could have, or bigger regions can have an interchange. And to make it easy for consumers, you want them to be able to know where the other interchanges are, what kind of data they actually have to share. And therefore, these interchanges need to be connected with each other. And for that, we use the II interface. So this is on one side, the concept of the interchange. And it is also nothing more. What I mean with that these are the parts that C-Roads specifies. And I've simplified it a bit, of course, because I didn't want to give a technical presentation. Now, if we look at the Swedish interchange, so Monarch has developed and deployed Swedish interchange for users of the pilots in Sweden. And today we have a number of pilots connected. So we see traffic light information being shared, traffic light priority messages can be shared. And also there's status data from connected vehicles flowing over the interchange. And then we have roadworks warnings, we have emergency vehicle approaching warnings, and we have in-vehicle signage messages. Now here we already deviate a bit from the C-Road standards because we facilitate also the exchange of other data types. So in this case, DTEX2 messages. And we have done that for the IVS pilot and also for a NEPCOR pilot. Besides the BI interface data that I just described, we also federate this interchange. We do that with Norway, but we also do it with a second interchange that we have set up for Sweden. So we could do a lot of testing during this program. And I think it's remarkable or something to be proud of as NordicWay that Norway and Sweden have the first really federated interchanges in Europe. On top of these, let's say the standardized functions of the interchange, we also have our signing messages centrally, because as I said already in the network setup, it might not be necessary to sign all messages, but some of the consumers do expect it. So for that reason, we decided to add functionality to our interchange that's actually capable of signing messages with the EU PKI level 0. And we also participated in cross-border testing with Slovenia and Italy, Finland and Austria. These are not federated interchanges. These are basically actors from these countries consuming data from the Swedish interchange. Now, to make it maybe a bit more come alive, I will show you a selection of interfaces from the interchange in Sweden. I will stop the presentation and I will share my screen. Maybe Jermut, if you can confirm that my screen is visible.
Yeah, I can see your screen.
Thank you. So. Now, this may look very technical, but I will go over it. So first of all, what you see here on top of my screen, you see that we actually have a network of interchanges. And in this network, we have 3 interchanges. And the beauty of this is that with the technology that we have in place, other interchanges can become part of this network. And then they will tell to each other what kind of capabilities, what kind of data they actually have available. What you see here is that we have set up 2 interchanges, and then we have the Norwegian interchange. Here you see the capabilities of interchange A. For lack of a better name, we chose that one. And well, we'll not go into the details, but here you see all the different capabilities, all the data that we have here, and you see the message types, as I showed before on the slide. As an experiment, we even have some US roadworks warnings that we connected to this interchange. It's basically to see and to test that we can have this international exchange. And here you also see that interchange A, which is a Sweden interchange, actually has capabilities from the Norwegian one. So actors in Sweden can connect to the Sweden interchange and consume data from Norway. And this is, of course, key for a large-scale deployment in the future where service providers or car OEMs would like to know what kind of data is available in, let's say, a Norwegian or the northern region or in the entirety of Europe. Now, switching to another, and we have many of the displays, but I will keep it to these few. Here you can see for, again, interchange A, you can see that all these actors are publishing data. So we have Carmenta publishing EVA data, for instance. And you can also see which actors are, sorry, these are actors that receive data, so they consume data, and these are actors that actually send data. And here you can see the data exchange between the interchanges. So you can see this very much a live environment that is used in all the pilots and deployments. Now, final thing I want to show is that if you are an actor and you want to connect to the interchange and consume data, this is all done. We have two ways to do that. We can either configure a connection for an actor, or actors can use what we call the local actor API. And I will explain that later a bit more. And what you see here, if we set up what we call static subscriptions, then they stay available. So here you see the static subscriptions we have created for the cross-border tests. Now, as said, setting up connections is done through APIs. That's what we expect in the future, because you want this to be an automated environment that can work with IT functions. But to make it a bit more come alive, we've also participated in the NAPCore pilot, where we used a front end that was developed by Norway. So very briefly, if you would have an API, you would want to connect to, for instance, MAPM data, so topology files from intersections. You can just subscribe to that data. And now I've created a subscription. This is requested. The interchange will check and normally quite fast create the capability. And now I can use this data to consume these MAPM files. So it's very much what you would do normally with an API, and you can set up connections really fast. So with this, I will end my demo, and we go back to the presentation. So Alva, if you can take the screen again. Yes, thank you. Control, I will go to the. Okay, so what's currently going on in terms of interchanges in Europe that we know of? This is a list that we took from the C-Roads group. So you see here a number of interchanges, and I sorted them sort of in their maturity in terms of how much data they exchange. So there's lots of experimenting going on in Europe today. And you see when you go down the list, you see it becomes more serious. Sweden is blue today, approximately exchanging 2 million messages every day. And then you go to the more, let's say, deployment environments, and you see the volume of the messages quickly growing. So this is sort of to get an idea about the interchanges. Today, the only interchanges that are capable of federation are the Norwegian one, the Sweden one, and the Flanders-Belgium one. But we know that, for instance, the Netherlands will add the II interface in 2024. So they will also be able to be part of a network of interchanges. So a lot of movement and a lot of things happening. Let's put it like that here. Now, we could say, is it solved? Is the data solving challenge between European authorities solved with an interchange like this? And unfortunately, it's not the truth, because the C-Roads specifications are technical specifications. They focus on interfacing, they focus on the DI and the II interface. But there's more to getting to a large-scale deployment. So there are a number of questions that we already knew at the beginning of NordicWay that we felt that needed to be dealt with. And for instance, how to manage connections. C-Roads says nothing about that. But if you have this large-scale ecosystem, you have many actors, you don't want to manually configure capabilities or stuff like that. And also, how do you scale? If you get to 10 million, 500 million, 1 billion messages every day, how do you scale that? Again, this is not something that is defined within C-Roads. And it will never be, of course, because this is the technical architecture of the solution that you use. And then also, it's not just about C-Roads, the CITS ETSI messages, it's also about other types of messages. And it's about governance and data quality. So there are many, let's say, challenges or important elements that you need to cover to get to large-scale deployments. And we've worked on that in NordicWay. So And I would like to, at this moment, also express my thanks to the Norwegian Road Authority, especially to Christian, who has worked a lot with our technical people. And together, I think they've done a tremendous amount of work to make the C-Roads specifications more, let's say, ready for large-scale deployments. Not all the work that we did is part of the C-Roads specifications because, yeah, as I said, they limit they stop with the interfaces. So an important thing that we did together was actually the development of a local actor API, meaning that we've created a standardized and open API that actors can use to connect to data and build their subscriptions. And it's a crucial element for deployment. And then there are a number of things that were especially the focus of our work that we've done in our products. And we've worked hard to make this a scalable solution. It means that we've integrated this with our native products, the Traffic Light Exchange platform, and that brings sharding, ultra low latency, and horizontal scalability. And what we mean with that is that we can unlimitedly scale our platform by adding more servers. So this is a technical piece of art that is also very much needed for large-scale deployments. Then we know from our experience, it's not just about CITS, etc. messages. So we've also made it possible using the C-Roads interfaces to exchange all types of data. And our platform is basically data agnostic. So we can go as far as we want to go here. And as I said, we worked on the signing and we've also worked on the governance. So how do you configure as an authority, as a supervisor of an ecosystem? How do you manage access? How do you configure access policies? Because we don't believe it's automatically that all data will always be accessible for all actors, simply put. And then data quality. It's also something we've put a lot of effort in to bring the concepts that we already had in our platform also to the interchange. So how do you check the data quality? How do you ensure it meets the specifications? And also, is the effects of a use case, are they actually there? And of course, for that, we need to connect the vehicle data. So these are important developments that we did in our platform. And we think with that, we can actually say that we solved the problem and that we have the better quality of the C-Roads interfaces now together with the maturity and scalability of the TX platform. This brings me to the end of my presentation. And for those who want to know more about these features, you can go online and go to this TX comparison report. Now, I want to end with one more personal note. We joined the NordicWay program as a Dutch company. By now, we're active in 6 countries. But I really want to thank all especially the Swedish players, to say so, in the NordicWay ecosystem, because we have felt very welcome and appreciated, and we enjoyed the cooperation a lot. So thank you for that. And now I guess back to the real topics.
Thank you very much, Menno. Menno, thank you very much. We will have some questions Q&A at the end of the session. So please write your questions to Menno in the chat window. Preferably also just comment that it's a question for Menno. I don't see any questions yet. So either it was crystal clear, your presentation, Menno, or there's people are still not awake. So please add your questions to the chat window. And we have time. We have more than enough time now. So we will definitely have a Q&A session, unless Ted and the rest of the presentation take more time. So the next presentation. So we will have Ted, and Ted work as a project manager at the Lindholmen Science Park in the area of sustainable mobility, with a specific focus on digitalization and connectivity. Before joining Lindholmen Science Park, Ted has a long career in the automotive area as research engineer and various management positions, always with a focus on securing the long-term technology development related to the challenges and opportunities of the future mobility and transportation. And together with Ted, we have Jonas. Jonas also a long career as a technology and management consultant, as well as a manager also on CEO level. Jonas' abilities and as a consultant reside within digitalization, business development, change management, and agile and lean product development, and mainly in the automotive industry. During the last 7 years, Jonas have specialized in digitalization in the transport infrastructure, where his long experience in the automotive industry plays an important role. And with that, Ted and Jonas, they will give us an recommendations for the interchange network deployment, with a focus on what's needed to make NordicWay 3 results available and commercially used in full scale after NordicWay 3. So then I give the word, and you can take over the presentation, Ted.
Thank you. Yeah, okay. Thank you, German, for this nice introduction. Yeah, my name is Ted Kruse, and we'll do this presentation together with Jonas Höglund. And well, the main focus of this presentation is, of course, the recommendations in the end. But before that, we'll go through some of the areas we have investigated that has ended up in these recommendations. And these areas are international perspective, what's happening in the area, so to speak, the technical ability of the interchange network solution, benefits, since there are, of course, costs connected with the implementation and maintenance of the interchange network. We, of course, need benefits as well. If not, there is a risk that nothing happens, or what has happened stops. This will be followed by governance, cybersecurity, an area of high and increasingly importance in all domains, not only the transport domain. And last and before the recommendation, we will also address ownership, financing, and maintenance of the interchange network. So let's begin. Starting with the international perspective and the digitalization of the transport system, most countries struggle with obstacles in the transport system, such as CO2 emissions, high load on the road infrastructure, fatalities, and injuries. And to solve those problems, new infrastructure has traditionally been built. But do we really want more roads? No, we want more living cities, I would say. Digitalization and CITS services will play an important role to overcome those existing challenges. And based on this, many different initiatives have emerged in order to generate the advantages that digitalization could bring. And the NordicWay project is a good example of such an initiative, where the interchange network constitutes the core. However, the Nordic countries are part of something bigger and cannot, and I would say should not, create a CITS ecosystem on their own. Going further into the international perspective, it's very clear that CITS is high on the agenda, and not the least emphasized by the ITS directive and the newly agreed amendment, that was recently agreed upon. Several initiatives within the European Union are addressing the creation of this CITS ecosystem. Here we mention some of them that we have selected, such as then, for instance, C-Roads, which then is a platform to harmonize CITS-related deployment throughout Europe. And the objective is to provide interoperable cross-border CITS services to road users. We would also like to mention NAPCOR, the National Access Point Coordination Organization for Europe. It has become apparent that the existing national access points are quite different in their setup and data access interfaces. And NAPCOR has been launched as a coordination mechanism to improve interoperability of the national access points, as then becoming the backbone of European mobility data exchange. European mobility data space aims to facilitate access to and reuse of mobility data involving all relevant stakeholders. And this is not built on one single platform, but instead based on platforms and ecosystem exchange and interoperability. Data for road safety, initiated 2017 by European transport ministers, European Commission and industry partners, aims to improve road safety for all road users across Europe. Also, then they established the safety-related traffic information ecosystem. And Car-to-Car consortium that was established already in 2002 by vehicle manufacturers with the goal of improving road safety through foresighted driving. The NordicWay Interchange is a solution enabling the creation of such a CITS ecosystem, and it would enable independent systems to collaborate using common interfaces and implemented using common specification, and thus would enable CITS services to be developed by different parties in the ecosystem, services that are then interoperable regardless of country. From a technical ability, it's clear already, I would say, from NordicWay 2 evaluation work that the interchange has proven to be a feasible solution for exchange of real-time CITS messages. And furthermore, through the C-Road specification, it's likely then to be compatible with other data exchange solutions implemented based on the same specifications. So as a message broker, the interchange network in a way has limited benefits on its own. It's of course when the services are added, the benefits are created. And what the interchange network does is to make it much easier to share and utilize data, create services and make these available to a larger market in an efficient way. However, the benefits from services implemented might not show up on the same place as where the cost is, which could be a challenge, but a challenge that is of course solvable. So when it comes down to who takes the cost and will be responsible for the operation and maintenance. The interchange network is primarily an enabler for CITS services and future autonomous driving services, but not the least has important capabilities to support a federated CITS ecosystem. But do not forget also the traveler's perspective on this and the expectations of a harmonized and borderless transport system, regardless of road operator and country, where a solution like the interchange network gives a clear advantage. A few words also about the governance perspective. We believe that the systematic governance on national and international level will be required to reach harmonization in such a complex ecosystem. Regulations will most likely also be a crucial factor for how a data exchange platform in the transport system would be owned and operated. And again, most likely the ITS directive, as mentioned already earlier, and the recently agreed updated amendment will guide how certain data exchange should occur, services that should be available, where and when in time. So now I will leave the word to Jonas, who will continue presentation.
Thank you, Ted, and thank you, everyone. So a few words on cybersecurity. So we want to emphasize this question on cybersecurity, and that is not on the technical level. There are technical solutions available for cybersecurity, and it has been partially at least implemented in the interchange, as already explained by Menno in the previous presentation. So the question is rather, we believe, on a civil security level. So if you have a look on the article to the right from a Swedish newspaper in September, the 4th of September this year, the traffic route Norra Länken in Stockholm was completely closed down. This was done since the data connections to a tunnel in this traffic route was lost. Based on that, Trafikverket decided to close the tunnel for safety reasons. So we can conclude that the lost data connection can lead to severe traffic disturbances and could therefore constitute a target for cybersecurity attacks. We have discussed this topic or tried to discuss with responsible authorities in Sweden, Norway, and Finland. But so far, none of them have really given an answer to the question of whether an interchange concept can constitute a civil security risk and should be treated like that. A few words on ownership. So the decisions on financing and ownership have not yet been taken and communicated by the Nordic transport authorities. It means that there is still a risk that the Nordic interchange network will not exist after the finalization of the research project NordicWay. And there could be consequences of that. We can't say that we fully know what will be the consequences if the interchange network is discontinued. But however, the different standpoints then from the Nordic transport administrations, they create an uncertainty among the ecosystem actors. Especially, this creates an uncertainty for actors from the private sector who have to base investment decisions based on the fact whether the interchange will be there or not. So we believe that maintaining the operation of the interchange network, here are some examples, but it would constitute a platform for further research and pilots. There will certainly be a lot of more ideas that could be implemented on the interchange network. It will also, if continued, demonstrate the scalability of the solution if operated in all the Nordic countries, and as such, it can serve as the good example for Europe. And it will also, maintaining the operation will also call for a necessary continued operation or cooperation, between the Nordic countries. So now we have covered the main topics that we have investigated during our work package, and based on that, we have concluded upon 10 recommendations. So recommendation number 1 is simply that we recommend to continue financing the interchanges that are already deployed for a long enough period in time to enable further research and development projects. We have concluded that 1 interchange per country will be minimum, but it will also be sufficient. Menno has explained several times that the technical ability is very big, and we would actually only need 1 interchange for the whole of Nordic countries, for instance. But we conclude from the civil security risk perspective that there should be national interchanges, governed nationally, since civil security is a national concern. And having said that, we also need then to establish national security guidelines and rules for an interchange. And it also includes then that the interchange shall be owned, financed and maintained by a public authority. It does not have to be the road authority. We have discussed several times, for instance, the possibility of actually starting a completely new authority for this purpose, but that is out of the scope of our work. But for the moment, it seems most likely that the road authority is suitable for this purpose. And then, if so, the necessary internal responsibilities and authorities for operation of the exchange need then to be established within each road authority, of course, since this is something that is on top of normal operation for the moment. This point has been discussed, and now we have formulated like that. It's of course important that the Nordic countries' solutions for CITS, including the interchange, are aligned over time, so that we will have a working CITS ecosystem. And to do that, we believe that a continued operation between the Nordic road authorities needs to be defined and established. I know that there are meeting forums, but on the other hand, we can conclude that the work within NordicWay have really boosted the cooperation over the country borders in the Nordic region. which has been very good. We also need, or we also recommend that there is an arena for cooperation between authorities and the private sector in the area of interchange, and that needs to be established now at the end of Nordic Way. Nordic Way project has been this arena up to now. And then, as Ted explained initially, EU invests a huge amount of money in the area of digitalization in the traffic infrastructure. So this is where the final decisions and solutions will come. And it means that from the Nordic countries' perspective, we need to continue to participate in this EU finance working groups, for instance, European Mobility Data Space and Sea Roads. And then last, as also introduced by Ted, we have had for a long time now the directive to establish the national access point, and most countries have a national access point. They have been established fairly differently, and I noticed that it is mixed up very often, the national access point and the interchange, among not so technical people. So we need to be very clear what are the similarities and relations, but also what are the differences here. So by that, I want to thank you all for listening. And on this slide, you see the whole project team that has contributed to this presentation.
Thank you very much, Jonas and Ted. I see that there's a couple of questions coming in for Ted and Jonas as well. So, but please write more questions for the Q&A afterwards. And I also see that there's it's not a question really, but it's a note or a comment from Christian that the continued operation of the Norwegian interchange procurement is out. So please please have a look at that. And then there is a follow-up question from Soma. So if Christian, you answer that one in the chat, that would be, or anyone else that can comment on that, that would be good. And we will come back to that in the Q&A as well. So then we go to our next presenter. And this time is Tarald. Tarald, he works as a consultant at Sopra, and he holds a solid experience from tech industry, transport and mobility, working with strategy, analysis and evaluations. In previous projects, Tarald has assisted the Norwegian Public Roads Administration with developing regulations, roadmaps, strategies and action plans related to ITS, data sharing, micromobility and automated transport. So, and Tarald will give us a presentation on the main findings and the recommendations based on the interviews with NordicWay 3 stakeholders and other data owners. So I will leave the word to you, Tarald, and if you can take over the presentation.
Yes,
Perfect.
of course. Yeah, thank you. And good morning, guys. So my name is Tarald.
You have also have a good time, Tarald. So
yeah.
We are a little bit ahead of schedule, so you have more than enough time. So please take your time.
Brilliant. Thank you. So I'm going to walk you through our evaluation report on activity 4. It has been written with the scope and the mandate related to governance and costs, but also business models and funding. So if we move on, I will briefly tell you the scope and the mandate. So it has been 3 parts. So the first part has been to coordinate and connect with the work done by Lindholmen Science Park in AFRY. So we have interview with, for instance, Jonas on their good work and interesting work, as we just heard. Also related to governance, we have looked at the EU level and the Nordic level, and because of the insights and knowledge brought to us by by the respondents. We also had written parts on national level as well. So the last thing we've looked at in the scope has been costs of introducing and operating and developing such interchange network. So moving on, the conducted work has been literature review. So we've gone through reports by Afri and Lindholmen. As we said, we looked at other relevant Nordic Way reports, especially related to costs, and also have looked at the most relevant EU directives and strategies. So our main data collection and structuring from this work has been interviews with 16 stakeholders within Nordic Way 3. So I will give you a very list here of our respondents. So 15 interviews, 16 respondents. We have interviewed people from Norway, Sweden, Finland, Denmark, and the Netherlands. Also, as you can see, in terms of type of organization, we've interviewed government agencies, state-owned companies, and commercial companies. So obviously, as you can see, the majority has been Norwegian stakeholders, but obviously we've interviewed every country related to Nordic Way 3. So that was the introduction. So let's jump to the findings. On the left side, we have asked about the sort of value add or benefits that stakeholders and respondents believe the interchange network would bring. So first important finding was the strong belief that the interchange is a very strong potential business case, especially for third-party suppliers such as Google, TomTom, Hera, developing services on behalf of the interchange. Also, reduced costs has been an important topic for several respondents related to less traffic jams, for instance. Also, several respondents highlighted the easier use of data because a lot of cars, obviously, today are equipped with mobile technology. Also, a lot of our respondents highlighted that the interchange technology is mature and it's up to date, so it's pretty much ready. So it's more a question of governance and funding more than technology. And some respondents also said that an interchange will fulfill transport policy goals and objectives, both at the national level and European level. While the cons communicated from the respondents were primarily two things. One, that the market more or less are already taken by commercial companies such as Google. And two, that there is a lack of data quality in user cases. And these things obviously go some sort of hand in hand. On business models and funding, there is probably the most important finding of the report is a very, very strong support for initial public funding by a large majority of our respondents. Obviously, as said, they mean that third-party supplies are key. If you actually deploy and implement some sort of interchange network, a success would be that third-party suppliers develop services in the end further down the road. A lot of respondents also said that funding will follow data quality, meaning that if you have the right data quality in terms of accuracy and relevance, commercial companies and customers are willing to pay. And the last finding at this slide is not everyone, but a few of the respondents were highlighting that there could be a low commercial interest at this point for transport safety data, but let's be clear, it's this point only, not in general. So moving on to the other findings, we've looked at governance. So at European level, very few of our respondents actually had clear-cut views, but we could split them in two. So the first group sort of say they communicated that it's important to going further with the interchange network. One needs to bring it up at the highest level possible. So obviously, to gain value, you need to include the European Union, while the other part communicated that it's, yeah, including European Union would, I mean, it's a large system, so it could possibly complicate a lot of the initiatives. And as a start, you have to go with the national approaches as being done today. On the Nordic level, very few respondents had some sort of suggestions, but some respondents arguing that there should be some sort of a Nordic secretariat for the interchange to come in the future. On the national level in Norway, there has been strong support for initial public funding, but also national initiative and governance through the government body. In Sweden, there has been some belief that commercial companies are quite active in this market already, and strong arguments are needed in the future. In Denmark, there is also some sort of initial public funding, strong support related to that. Some undecided future on the initiative in Denmark. In Finland, as you know, has started to develop their own this year, and right now there is a bit undecided for the specific future for this interchange in Finland. Other findings, an important finding would be the lack of knowledge and awareness, especially among decision makers in the government agencies and also in the Ministry of Transports in different countries. It will be an important job in the future to communicate the value add and user cases from the interchange network. Several respondents also highlighted that it's the data quality, not the data format, which is the key. Moving on, as we already looked at, there are some different national approaches related to the different initiatives. We have concluded on 3 different respondent groups. So the majority has been advocates and supporters, while a little minority has been doubters. So advocates are very positive towards the interchange and would like some sort of initial public funding right away, while supporters are also positive, but a bit more concerned about how to solve governance and funding. And doubters are obviously skeptic towards how interchange should be deployed and how it should be organized and governance. So moving on to the cost estimates. So let me first say that very few of our respondents had clear-cut estimates on costs. We asked everyone about the insights and knowledge related to the interchange and conducted work. So a lot of them initially started to compare the interchange network to the alternative, and as several said, it has been mostly the short range radio system, which they have compared to, also arguing that an interchange network would obviously mean less infrastructure in the future. And also there has been expectation of public sector funding in the future from a lot of our respondents. And obviously the development costs are very hard to estimate. Therefore, we have included operational costs with the uptime from 7 p.m. to 4 a.m. as an example in this annual estimate. We have server costs and human resource costs related to an employee working with the interchange. Means that we're landing about 162 to 183 euros in annual estimates for one country. As Christian has already written in the chat, one way going forward is going into the market with a public tender to get concrete figures from suppliers. So three possible ways going forward would be alternative one, much as done today with interchange during the period. NordicWay 3 continues work. This has been looked at as a costly way of doing it. A less costly way of doing it would be adding interchange functionality into a sort of existing system. And the third approach would be using already existing interchanges and gradually adapting with minor local specifications. So we have 8 recommendations. The first one is much like Ted and Jonas regarding some sort of initial public funding going on. It goes hand in hand with the public governance and the ownership. It's also important to highlight what kind of transport policy goals the interchange will solve, both European level and a Nordic level, and also on a national level. One way is going forward would be public tender process, as already done in Norway last week. On a more Nordic level, one suggestion would be to organize some sort of Nordic CITS steering committee or group with stakeholders from every country, having working groups, subgroups on strategic topics such as data quality improvement, such as third-party or private sector supplier forum, and also, as stated by Ted, deciding the EU approach and regulations and laws in the future. So a very quick overview could be something like this for a structure with members from all NordicWay 3 countries in the steering committee and working groups on data quality, public tenders, funding, EU and regulations, and user cases, for instance. So this is our 8 recommendations, with the most important being initial public funding and this Nordic CITS steering group. So thanks for your attention, and Jerman, I think that was about 15 minutes or so.
Yes, thank you very much, Adal. You still have some time if you want to add some more at the end, but
we can go through the questions, I think.
Yeah, we will go to the Q&A. We have quite a lot of questions, so but please do write some more questions when you have them now. And I think so for everyone to think about some questions for Taral, we will go back to the start of the presentation and go up to the first questions for Menno. So if all presenters could turn on your cameras, and we will go through the questions and you can answer, and of course all the other presenters can also add their comments to the questions if they would wish. So Menno, we had first question was for you. If there's time if you could elaborate some of how the Actor API is intended to be used in the future. How would be the intended use, and when would the Actor API be used? That's a question from Anna.
Yeah, so the Actor API is used to set up a connection, but also to manage that connection. So to change the scope, to end the connection in a nice way, etc., etc. So, I mean, I expect that all organizations that consume data would use the local Actor API to set up the connections, to manage them, to terminate them, etc. So examples like can be car OEMs, navigation providers, but also traffic management and authorities themselves that want to consume some data that is not from their own environment. So it's a technical facility, let's say, that will make sure that you have this ecosystem up and running without needing too much manual work for setting up connections.
Good, thank you, Menno. And then another question for you also, Menno, is from Evan. How can it be possible to implement the federated interchanges as common European service for CITS? And what is the possible obstacles for a full-scale implementation in Europe? So 2 questions there for you from Evan.
Yes, well, I think there will be a different pace between different countries and regions in Europe. So it will not be that all the countries will launch these European CITS services at the same time. So I think that's a first thing that is good to accept and to realize. And I think it's also a message not to wait, but you can choose as a country where you want to be, of course. We want to be at the end of this deployment or more in the beginning, which I think it's already started. So let's say, are you the early majority or the late majority? I think sort of that's where you are right now as a country. And I think, I mean, it's important if you want to be in that early majority to get started. So you cannot foresee and design everything today. Many things we will learn during deployment. This is not a bad thing. Let's say the current knowledge and quality that there is enough to get started and to work on a serious level already, as you see in the Netherlands with billions of messages. So it's good enough for that already. And there will be more learnings in the future that we will solve as a ecosystem along the way. I think that the obstacles, data quality is key. But again, there I also think that you need to get started to really experience the data quality issues. Because now what I hear a lot is that people think like this is a one-time thing. So I organize my quality and then I'm done. And that's not how it works. This is a continuous effort. Things change, problems happen, and this is a real-time ecosystem. So you need to monitor and manage the quality continuously. And this is really a big and important, let's say, potential obstacles. Only if you get started, you will see the quality issues. You will see the differences between countries and regions and actors in the ecosystem. I do think that actually the biggest possible obstacles are around the approach. So I think, and I had some time to think about this question, but I wrote down 4, let's say, issues with approach. I think number 1 is repeating pilots. So we have seen the use cases in NordicWay, and I would urge to the community not to repeat pilots on these use cases anymore. And that's a risk. That's an obstacle for really deployment. And the second obstacle that I see is a focus on technology instead of impact. So focus on continuously debating interfaces, security, etc., instead of looking at the use cases and the impact and the focusing on that. So the easiest thing is to hire developers and continue work instead of really getting out and having these benefits in society, which is way more important. So I think that's a big obstacle. I think another obstacle is think too big. So you want to solve it all for the entirety of Europe, have a perfect system before you start. That's also an obstacle. And in general, that brings me to my conclusion that the biggest obstacle is a focus on risks instead of opportunity. So the question can be, why should we do it? But the question can also be, what are the costs of not improving safety with this technology that is now available? What are the costs of not working on sustainability and equity of transport? So I think that's a mindset. And as I see this, the mindset is the biggest obstacle right now in the ecosystem.
Thank you, Menno. Maybe Ted or Jonas or Tarald also, if you have some comments to the obstacles when it comes to a full-scale implementation. Do you want to add something from your side? You don't have to, but if you have something, please.
We are discussing here. I'm in the same room as Ted. Yeah. The next question that is actually for Ted is related to Menno's answer.
Yeah.
So do you want to
do that? The question was to Ted, what do you mean with the likely to be compatible with the rest of Europe? Why likely?
Yeah, exactly. I think in a way it's maybe a little bit too defensive way to put it, but I think it's more of an expression of uncertainty. What will happen in the other countries throughout Europe regarding the conformance to the zero specification, even though as Manu already showed in his presentation, there are a lot of countries now implementing and have reached a little bit different from a progress point of view. But I think it's that's more of an expression, a little bit of uncertainty rather than.
Yeah, I can add to that we have seen, although I think Tarald also lifts this forward a little bit, and that is that to make things really happen in such a big community as the European Union, we also need directives. And the directives we have come from the ITS directive, and it places a directive on the national access point, which is a problem, I think. So although we, of course, in the Nordic, we are forward-leaning and we want to explore the new technology, but there are countries that do only the minimum of the directive still, or not even that. So this is why likely, in my opinion.
Okay, thank you very much. Tarald, do you want to comment on the question about full-scale implementation, or you want to go to the next one? You're still on mute, Tarald.
Sorry. So maybe the one thing I would like to highlight is also an important finding in the report related to data quality, said by the vast majority of our respondents, arguing we have to work together in a Nordic way related to find better data quality and improve them. So that would be my main thing here.
Yeah.
Very good. And then we have another question for Jonas. Why one interchange per country?
Yes. I mean, this is not 100% black or white, the answer to this question, but we have seen during a long time that there are discussions on almost over national level on where should we store the data, who owns the data, can we even take the risk? And there have been processes between Meta and the European Union, for instance, about who owns data and where is data stored. From a Swedish local perspective, we can say that Trafikverket, they don't even allow Teams as their platform due to data constraints. They still use Skype. And the reason is that data may not be stored outside Sweden. So even if this is not very specifically addressed, we believe that this is how governments will react on this question if they get it. It has to be governed nationally. Another point that we didn't mention is that, as Manu pointed out, you can easily connect to another country's exchange, but we also need redundancy, right? So let's say somebody takes down the Swedish interchange, and that's the only one. So now if we develop a network with, let's say, one interchange per country, we will develop a very clear redundancy and also resilience, I would say. So it's not an easy answer, but this is the main reason for our recommendation.
Yeah, so and it was a follow-up. You probably answered it a little bit, but as Luna also asked, so even though this cybersecurity is a national responsibility, it does not mean that the solution needs to be national. But I assume that you already answered.
That was what I was commenting here. Yeah. So no, it doesn't mean that, but I think in the end of the day, if this question is really taken seriously, we will conclude that, the national data needs to be under national governance.
Good. Then we have a question from Christian. It's not said who, so you will have to answer all 3 or 4 of you. So can the national access point be updated to contain the same functionalities as the interchange and fulfill the task of the interchange? This would limit the government's issue, according to Christian. I don't know who want to answer that.
Yeah, we have already a written answer there from Christian Berg, right? So the easy answer is yes, but the more complicated answer is that, but then you have to do more than what's in the directive, and then you have to understand the differences. So if you would understand the differences and you want to be cost efficient here, then you should combine them. But so far, there is only this Finnish initiative on that topic. Or do you see some more initiatives out in Europe, Menno?
Well, I might have a bit of a different answer there. So I think it's about how you look at the national access points. So if you look at this as a technology, then this question, I understand the question, but you can also look at this as a concept. So the national access point is, and that's how I see it, is the concept that as a country that you share this mobility data and you make it available. Now, it is not said that you have to use one technology. It feels to me like you want to do everything with a hammer. So if you're a constructor, you have one tool and you want to do everything with that specific tool. And I don't think that's a smart way. So I think as an authority, you have a toolbox of technologies that you use to realize the national access points. And part of that data is, for instance, very much real-time associated. And for that, the interchange is a perfect tool. Some other data may be much more static, and you can just publish an API or a set of data or something. So I think what I see in, let's say in some other countries, I do see a combination of real-time data and semi-real-time data over something like an interchange, and then another thing for static data. I think that's fine for consumers because they know that these are different types of data, that you can use different tools. So that would be my answer. What I can say is, for instance, that we strive to combine as much data exchange technologies in our platform. So we're also working on the data space protocol, for instance, to be part of the platform. In the end, the interface is not a real problem. That's sort of my message. It's of course about the data, and for the commercial players in the market, or let's say the navigation companies, the OEMs, they don't want a broad range of data interfaces, but it's okay if you have a few. So that will be my answer there.
Yeah. Good. Ted, Jonas, do you have any comments?
Yeah, that was a really good answer. Thank you, Menno. What you say is in a sense that the national access point is like an umbrella and the interchange is one of the solutions being provided through the national access point. Okay, so that was clear. Thank you.
Very good. We moved on. We have a question to Ted and Jonas from Tom. Are you aware of the newly started Nordic Mobility Plus, which is a collaboration of ITS Association of the Nordic countries? This might be a possibility while establishing an arena for cooperation. And the national road admins are members also.
Yeah. We are aware, but we're not very knowledgeable in the area. I think this is funded by the Nordiska Ministerrådet, right? Is that correct?
Someone can answer or
is this a subgroup of the Nordiska Ministerrådet?
Yeah, yes. So thumbs up there. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a good initiative. It can certainly serve as a platform. I'm only concerned that there are too many uncoordinated initiatives with a lot of money from a government perspective. But certainly it can be used. Then we have to agree on that this is the platform. And one advantage is, of course, that it is up and running and it has an authority and it has funding.
Good. Then I have a question for Tarald from Jonas. So the question of the service providers versus the interchange is central. We're not sure that two are really solving the same problem. Can you elaborate some more on this?
Yeah, so I'm actually sending the question right back to Jonas just for clarification, elaboration on your question. Yeah.
So you mentioned that companies like Google and here and TomTom, they are already in the market and they have taken quite a good big marketplace. And I know that the road authorities are really much looking into and also looking forward to this, taking a responsibility. But I'm not really sure that they are solving exactly the same problem. And this is a moving target in a sense. Today we can observe that many of the OEMs, most OEMs choose some of these service providers to be the link for connectivity between a car and the world. On the other hand, they also need to get their data from somewhere. So they are retrieving data from floating car data, from sensors, also from the road authorities. And then we can discuss what is the channel we want to use between these service providers and the road authorities. Could the interchange play a role here, or is it superfluous? I don't know.
Well, okay, to answer your questions, thank you for your elaboration. So, yeah, I do not think they solve the same problem, so to say. Our respondents, I would say the vast majority would also say the same as us, support us in terms of the interchange being needed and service providers being like on the side or developing services on basis of the interchange. So therefore, we have a recommendation on this third-party supplier forum, more or less, except like you had in your recommendations, actually. So in terms of getting the dialogue to find out how to work better, how to improve data quality, etc.
Yeah, so I have one example here that can maybe enlighten a little bit. There is a directive already in use for what is called the intelligent speed assist. It means that new cars needs to have a way of informing the driver about the speed limit, actively informing, not only a picture. So it has to be haptic or sound. But where do the car manufacturers get this data? Today we know that they use cameras and that accuracy is it's believed to be like let's say 80%, which is really too low if they should haptically feedback this to the driver. So we believe that this data needs to come from the authorities instead. And what would be the channel here? And also it enlightens the question that you highlighted on data quality. So we need, how could we assure data quality? Probably only through the authorities here.
Yeah, and also our recommendation has been in initial public funding, but also public ownership and governance, being much the same said, really. Yeah.
Very good, thank you. We also have a question from Soma here, and I see that Magnus have already answered it. But I guess it also can be if there's someone else. But in addition to OEMs, did NordicWay establish any dialogue cooperation with mobility service providers in large urban areas? And if yes, what are the lessons learned and plans for the future? So, and Magnus have answered a little bit, but maybe if someone, Ted, Jonas, or Tarald or Menno would like to comment a little bit on that.
It would be great if Magnus could elaborate a little bit more on his answer. Or is he Muted.
He's not able to answer.
Okay, I see.
Yeah,
No,
but he's
I don't have
written,
an answer to this. Menno,
Yeah.
maybe.
So someone is saying that there has been a dialogue, but the mobility service providers are still very much in the research phase and not close to implementation as the services in NordicWay 3 are. So the work has been more done in the research programs such as Try Sweden, and we have several big cities involved in the NordicWay, but their interest in terms of deployment is still more in the traditional public transport. I don't know if you guys have any comment to that.
Well, I can add, I think these parties are not so interested in pilots anymore. So I think fleet owners or service providers, they would be interested in more real activities. So that's let's say my understanding, not so much from the activities within NordicWay, but from all the conversations in general that I have.
Yeah. What I can add is that in the ITS conference in Lisbon, the EU authorities pointed out that data for mobility as a service is key for the European Union from now on, and that they are really pursuing these use cases.
Good. I don't see any more questions in the chat window, but we have still a couple of more minutes left. So I have a question for Menno. Since you're at least one of the private stakeholders here. So do you have any further development plan then, and what kind of development is that? Could you share a little bit more?
Yes, well, of course. For us, this is now an existing product that is also deployed and sold to a number of countries, and who are responsible, of course, for the governance then. So they fully control these environments. Let me stress that. But it means that we will continue to improve and update this product. We do typically 2 releases per year, so we'll also do that for this product. And they typically contain many smaller changes requested by customers. But let's say 3 bigger developments that we have ongoing is, first of all, the deployment of AI technology to detect data anomalies. So if you exchange these billions of messages, you want to be on top of data quality. You want to know if something out of the ordinary is happening somewhere. So for that, we are now currently developing more and more AI algorithms to do that detection. And another, let's say, bigger development track that we have is to integrate with the data spaces protocol that is gaining momentum in Europe. So, which is not so well equipped for real-time data currently. So we're working to fix that. And then I think the number 3, which is also maybe a bit more geared towards the future, is even lower latencies by looking at 5G and 6G networks and the capabilities that these networks bring us. So these are 3, let's say, bigger development tracks that we have within our company.
Good, thank you. We have still a couple of more minutes, so I'll have a short question for you, Tarald, at the end. What did the respondents say about the funding of the interchange network with commercial fees versus public funding?
Yeah, so we actually asked every respondent that question, and I think 1 out of 16 said at this moment some sort of annual commercial fee would be the way to go forward. So meaning that the majority of our respondents argued for some sort of initial public funding. So maybe in the future some sort of monthly or annual fee could be the way, but at this moment the respondents said it wasn't really realistic.
Very good. Then I would like to thank you, Tarald and Ted and Jonas and Menno, for your presentations and for the answer for the Q&A. So we will now take a short break, stretch our legs and get a fresh cup of coffee, and we will resume the session at 10:45, so that's in 15 minutes. So we'll see you then. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I think now it's 10:45, so we will resume the session. Welcome back. Hope everyone have filled their cup with coffee or tea or any other beverages that is suitable for an early webinar. And again, as we did in the previous session, we will have a Q&A session at the end. But please use the chat window now during the presentations to write your questions, and very much appreciate if you can write who your question is to, or all of the presenters. Now it's Kenneth and Alf. So please write your questions in the chat window. And I think then we will just start. So Kenneth, over the past 4 years, Kenneth Sørensen, he has served as a senior engineer at the Norwegian Public Road Administration, where he has focused on intelligent transport systems from a technological standpoint. And prior to this role, he contributed to ITS-related research and development at SINTEF. And he also have a background in the oil and gas industry as a consultant. And today, Kenneth will show us an extension to the interchange that has been developed in collaboration. And this enhancement allows integration with national access points for transport data. So then you can take over the presentation, Kenneth. Find the button. Perfect. I'll leave it to you.
Yes, good morning, everyone. I'm going to talk about a demonstration that we did in NAPCOR with the interchange. This is quite new. This was demonstrated 2 weeks ago in Mobility Data Days, which is a conference by NAPCOR. Yes. So what we want to show is a live demonstration of sharing cross-border metadata and real-life data. So this was a collaboration between Denmark, Norway, and Sweden. I guess some of the participants are in the audience. So just a quick recap, what is NAPCOR? This is the agenda. Then I will describe the demonstrator. I will show a video of the demonstrator. And if I have time, I can give a bit more demonstration of the tool that we developed. Menno showed some of the features. I might show some more if I have the time. So NAPCOR, it is a self-funded project like NordicWay. The goal is to harmonize the mobility data platforms and national access points for mobility data across Europe. These access points are a mixed bag, with some being quite advanced and some being not so advanced. So this is a big undertaking. Currently, the project is also responsible for maintaining and developing the DATEX2 standard. So what we wanted to do is overcome challenges related to European-wide metadata and data sharing. We want to promote the collaborative sharing practices among different NRAs and other organizations that perhaps want to share the data. And also how to get metadata and real-time data to all interested parties through any NAP. So in essence, we're looking at a way to enhance the NAPs using the interchange. So quite quickly, the way the NAPs tend to work is that you have a lot of organizations looking for service providers that are looking for information. So that's the figure on the left. So the blue nodes are organizations looking for transport data. So what you can get through the access points is a complex web of bilateral agreements with regards to login credentials, certificates, protocols, formats, and also agreements. So if you want to add another organization into this picture, it gets complicated. And if you want to, and if someone changes their interface, a lot of parties need to change their interface. So this is a complex web. So what we wanted to achieve is a federated network of these red nodes that are the interchanges, where you already have the agreements and formats and credentials in place already. So that if you want to receive data from any organizations, you could do that through the interchange. And if you want to push data, you can do that through interchange. The demonstration that we did not cover pushing data, by the way. Yeah. So quite simply, we have the interchange as is, which is like results from NordicWay and also C-Roads. And then you have the NAP on the other end. And the demonstration covers that ground. So what was developed is a REST API so that you can access the II and BI interfaces to find your data. And also a web page on top of that that handles user preferences, your different subscriptions, also getting the security keys that you need, etc. So that is the outcome from the demonstration, and it's also available as a repository in GitHub on request. So it's supposed to be open source, but currently on request. So to prove our point properly, we got a service provider involved in the demonstration, B-Mobile from Belgium. So the context for this demonstration is that the demonstration was on the 24th of October. That was a Tuesday. So the week before, on the Thursday, B-Mobile got access to the platform. On Friday, they confirmed that they were receiving data. And on Tuesday, they were able to provide us with this demonstration. So it's a testament to the flexibility and ease of use of this platform. So I'll mute my microphone and hopefully you will get some sound. Yeah, so quickly summarize what they did. They had, using the web page that you saw, they had set up an endpoint that gave them one that gave them data from Denmark, one that gave them data from Sweden, and then they showed everything in the map. And then on the fly, they created another subscription for Norway, and we just waited like a short period of time because the data is sent periodically, and then it showed up for Norway. So let's see if I can just give a quick tour of the tool. Can you see?
Yeah, can see your screen, Kenneth. So
this is the tool that we created. And these are a list of my current subscriptions. So to get access to this, you currently have to contact Christian Schöttner, who will give you the credentials. Hopefully this can be centralized. It uses PKI for this. So if you want to integrate this into an application as a third party, you can download and name your certificates here. And so you will get 3 certificates, 2 that's part of the PKI and 1 for which is a public certificate for the interchange. This will download directly to your computer. And you can also tailor your subscriptions. So you have a list of the network capabilities here, where you can actually subscribe also, which Manuel showed you, with different versions of Datex running, but you can also tailor them some more. So you can choose which country you want from. You can choose between a few message types. And you can also filter based on geography. So if you want, for example, for Oslo, you could go like this. And then you will see, this is the improved interface query language, which created a subscription for you. So now in my subscriptions, I have added another one here on top, which you can see is the one that I just created. So to access this, you need the certificates and you need these endpoints values. So this is the endpoint you will connect to. It's the topic of the AMQP. Can you bring up the presentation again, Gjermund?
Yeah, Oliver will bring it back, please. It should be. Oh, you have to jump.
I was pretty much finished. Let's see. So yeah, I'm a bit over time now. So
Oh,
yeah,
you have
so this.
you have more time, Kenneth. No stress. You have another 5 minutes.
Okay. Yeah, so this is the feedback from B-Mobile. So we can see that it was very easy. We have one platform where you can receive all traffic information from different countries. Yeah, you can read it pretty much yourself. So at this time, we are finishing up the report for this demonstration. So what we are trying to do is to get the interchange components into the reference architecture for the NAPs. So that's probably going to be a bit of discussion. And there's also a level of service KPI, key performance indicator, which says something about what type of data and what kind of service you can get from the different national access points. And we are trying also to get the federation or interchange functionality, as part of that. So you can contact me on this email. So that concludes my presentation.
Thank you very much, Kenneth. And your presentation was crystal clear, so no questions so far. But please, we have time for a Q&A at the end of this session as well. So if you have any questions for Kenneth, please write them in the chat window. Or give them applaud for their good demonstration. Thank you. We will now talk, and our last presenter before we take lunch is Ulf. Ulf is a senior advisor with experience from Swedish Transport Administration, industry, and some 10 years together with the Research Institute in RISE, dealing with digitalization within the transport sector, such as mass situation awareness. He has also been involved in many of the existing ITS systems in Sweden, such as motorway control system, trafiken.nu, and traffic signals, but also with the legal questions around these systems. So today, Ulf will give us a presentation about the needs for standards to achieve harmonized and cross-border operational CITS services and how they will elaborate it. So the floor is yours, Ulf, and if you can take over the presentation.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm not sure that I can move the picture.
There's
it works. It works.
Perfect.
Yes, thank you. And still I can say good morning to all of you who are listening here. I think also that we have heard some issues which I will repeat this morning, and repetition is the mother of knowledge. So let's hear here. My presentation is called From Vision to Reality, and that's a question of standards and international cooperation. So what I will talk about is some background, very short, the revised directive and the development platforms which have been performed for the developments of CITS. What we have found in our work, and also some words about next step. I should say that we are in the progress of this report, so it's a draft, and I should say we welcome questions or comments very much. We have
before you continue, Alf, you haven't taken over the presentation, but if you just let me know, and I will change the slides for you.
Okay, so you can change now. The background then, NordicWay states in a grant agreement it is towards cooperative connected autonomous mobility. So this is a step and where we will learn how to interpret data, how road users are accepting or not accepting their views. So it's an important learning step, I should say. And before we came here, there has been a lot of years of cooperation within EU. As Nordic countries, we know well Viking and NordicWay, where we have elaborated the questions of different ITS services. And also it is important to state that this is doing this type of services is not a one-man show. Many stakeholders are involved, and following that standards is very important to follow if the services should operate cross-border. It should be quite the same in Sweden as in Norway, as in Germany, Spain, etc. So that's a type of background to our work here. This slide will illustrate the question of standards, how they relate to each other. Standards are processed on global level, on regional level, such as Europe, and then on a member state level. I illustrate with Swedish organizations here. And there is a mirroring between Sweden regional and the global. If we for example, take ISO on global level, it relates to CEN in Europe, and in Sweden, it is CIS. The standard organization for products and materials. The same way with IAC, Senelec, and in Sweden it's the SEK organization. And ITU has its counterpart in Europe called ETSI. So all these standard organizations, they relate to each other. And as a Swedish organization, you also can take part in all this type of work. The revised directive was adopted in October, so it's a month ago. So now it's a question of implementation of that directive in each member state, doing a working program for 12 months, I believe, and implementing a program for 5 years. And the EU Commission organization has been within DG Move, and they have organized the work according this picture, where you have the work with the ITS directive and delegated acts on one hand, and you also have the deployment framework for the CITS strategy, the CITS platform, and roads, where we have done all our large-scale projects around. What's a pity is that roads ends at the end of this year. So we believe that there will be some form of continuation on European level, because everything is not solved to have these type of services in secure operation. As I said in the beginning, we have done a lot of interviews, and we are still in that business, but we nevertheless will illustrate our findings in this matrix. And we call it maturity of day one, but it is with respect to standards. So it's not the maturity and how it's implemented in any of the Swedish Nordic countries here. But some of them work very good. So we have interviewed persons from emergency vehicle approaching, from roadworks warning, traffic signal with those 3 flagships we have, the information, the priority, and then the map. And we also have dealt with in-vehicle signage, the motorway controls POC in Sweden. And on the left hand, you can see some KPIs we believe is rather important when we talk about standards here. So is the service C-roads compliant? And when we illustrate with those green dots, it is in principle, but not with all details. We have asked persons if it's very regional, local, so-called standard, or national. Is it cross-border operating? And if there are some main deviations to the C-roads recommendations for standards. So you can see that emergency vehicle and roadworks warning, there are a lot of yes on these columns. Traffic signal, we think we are not ready quite there, that it works cross-border and is C-roads compliant. in-vehicle signage, there we today have data sharing with Dartex, and that deviates from the C-Roads specification, which state it should be ETSI. ETSI is a format for all the other services. When I said about that in principle, it is with focus for PKIs or cyber security. Some of the services works in this field. They have certificate and level 0. The other, as you can see, is still to be defined. On the right hand, when we have interviewed those approximately 30 persons, all of them say we need an interchange. We need that if it should be possible to do those service operational. So it's still a draft. The maturity is with respect to standard. I would like to comment this to EVA and Roadworks warning, because they are in the situations that they already cover most of the Nordic countries. We are sure it works for Sweden, and we know it is operational also in other Nordic countries. So there we have two good services. I then would like to end with what we expect to do after this project has ended. We have already heard that there are a lot of activities going on within EU. However, I should say that it is both a momentum just now, but it is also important to go on with these services, because this is not only a question of technique. We have soft questions or issues we also need to evaluate, and that's the road users and building a reliable ecosystem. So that is something we would emphasize here. Go on with the good work within the EU, like NAPCOR, like mobility, data mobility platform, etc. But continue with the services so we get real results. And the most maturity services from our point of view is emergency vehicle approaching and roadworks warning. And they state that it is a prerequisite that there is a form of interchange node, because all this is about real-time information. We also recommend that we go on with those questions or issues which are not solved completely in neither in NordicWay 3 and or in the C-Roads. So some form of C-Roads 2.0 is needed. Another question is Euro NCAP. because they state that they will add another star in the tests and evaluation if we have solved the V2X communication on an agreeable level within Europe. So that should happen according to the homepage next year. We have to see, but it could also be a driving force for introducing these type of services we are discussing here. That was what I had on my mind. I would like to thank, you can see on the right side here, those we have interviewed, a lot of organizations and some 30 persons. And this report will be available on SharePoint. It's not decided yet where. And please contact Johan Östling and myself if you have both comments to this or questions. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Alf. Thank you very much for your presentation. And also just comment here from Giacomo about C-Road platform is extended until the 31st of December 24. At least that answered some of your concerns and questions.
Good.
I have some questions. There's no questions for in the chat for you, Alf, but I have a question for you, Alf. So know that all the work is where we worked together for many years and spent time and money. So how will we go on after NordicWay 3 ended? Is it C-Roads that's the answer, or is there anything else?
Yes, my guess is it should be some form of the C-Roads organization. What I know is that Austria are prepared to go on as a secretariat, just as they have done so far, and there are other countries joining. And my view is that the Nordic countries will follow what's happening. How deep or extensive we will follow is another question, perhaps, but there are some crucial issues like the hybrid questions, like the governance, like the security PKIs, which should be solved and agreed upon.
Good. Thank you very much, Alf. We have some question for you as well, Kenneth. There's one from Martin. How is maintenance/renewal of the certificates handled?
Yeah, that's a quite technical question. So let's see, I made some notes here. The interchanges themselves have quite long-living certificates. Replacing the certificates between them is quite a manual process with a certificate signing request. And if the certificates are changed, you probably need to get your own certificates through the tool that we showed earlier. I'm not the best person to answer the really deep technical questions. That's Christian Bergshetne who's been running the development there. But one of the challenges is like offset to get a more like overarching PKI framework in place. Did that answer the question?
Yep. Thank you. We have another question from Anna. Did you get any feedback from other service providers based on the demonstration at the NAPCOR Mobility Days in Budapest? And do they see this as a possible data feed for their services?
Unfortunately, we haven't gotten any feedback from other service providers, so we probably need to get out there and promote this more. But B-Mobile was quite satisfied with it.
Good. So we just need to make sure that the other service providers also get a try.
Yep.
Good. And then another question for you, Kenneth, from Christian. How expensive would you say it is for MPRA to implement an interchange and getting it up and running, supporting real-time traffic information? I know it's not an easy question, but at least if you can try.
I don't think I can put some euro amount on that one. But it depends on a few things. It depends on if you want to go down the build it yourself route and use the open source software that is available for the interchange, or if you will buy it from a third party like Monoch. It also depends on like the volume of messages that it needs to consume, and also the service level agreement, like uptime and reliability. So it's very hard to say, unfortunately.
Good. And then you got some applause as well from Christina. So I have another question for you, Kenneth. What will your recommendations be for the future of the demonstrator? We mentioned about more service providers and so on, but do you have any other also follow-up recommendations?
Yes. We should probably maintain it and try to also make it include publishing messages, so that you can also get an endpoint for publishing data that you want to share. We need to show it more. We need to get more service providers on board. What we are currently doing is also extract the key components of the reference architecture of the interchange and try to get it into the NAP core reference architecture. That might mean that we have to break it into smaller components, like splitting it in the basic interface and the improved interface and the AMQP, since a NAP already may have an AMQP. And also, as I mentioned earlier, get this as one of the evaluation criteria for the level of service of an app. And of course, the interchange, like it's also said, it's like to a hammer, everything looks like a nail. It's well suited to certain types of data, more for the dynamic data that needs to get out to the users quickly. It's very well suited, but maybe more for the static, like statistics and stuff like that, it's not that well suited. So it's to find the boundaries of the platform as a solution.
Very good. Thanks, Kenneth. And then a little bit back to the demonstration. Some of us had sound and some did not. So the presentation will be shared afterwards. So hopefully you will all be able to listen to the sound of the video recording in the demo that Kenneth shared as well. Good. Then I don't see any more questions in the chat window. So we are then very close to lunch.
Can I just add a couple more points?
Yes, of course.
So I think the challenge going forward is to get more countries to participate in the interchange network. So it will be really great to onboard more countries and organizations. It doesn't necessarily need to be a country, can be an organization also. We also need to standardize and unify the access control. That's a challenge. And there are competing solutions. I got the sense of that in the Mobility Data Days conference. For example, the Mobility Data Space certainly has a very similar platform going on, but with mechanisms to facilitate commercial interest and stuff like that. And also, it's probably been mentioned earlier, financing. We need to keep these things running. So I understand the question for Christian to get the funding, but unfortunately, I don't have a good answer for that.
Oh, that's very good. Thank you, Kenneth. Then, as well, we will now conclude this first session. There will be a lunch break until 12:30. When this next session about traffic signal information and priority will start. So thank you for joining us. Thank you to all the presenters. Thank you for everyone listening, and we'll see you after lunch. Thank you. Goodbye.
Great job, Bjarne.